It is such a grand strategic decision for our country about where we see ourselves over not just the next year or two, but the next 10 to 20 years. Are we a serious influence within NATO? Can we meet our obligations in NATO and indeed in other places such as the Gulf on this assumption of 13 odd billion pounds? The answer, I'm afraid, will be largely we cannot, and we need to come clean about it.
But right now, a former professional head of the British Armed Forces has written in the Times today warning Britain is at a tipping point as a serious world power because of our indecision over increased defence spending. Field Marshal David Richards, Lord Richards, who is the Chief of Defence Staff, is warning that if Sir Keir Starmer signs off the defence investment plan as it is, our credibility and influence as a nation will be significantly reduced. Lord Richard joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Rosie. I apologise, I can only just hear you and I can't see you. I'm sure that's my problem, but I'm sure we can go ahead.
Well, let me ask you a very simple question then. What do you see as the current problem with the defence investment plan as we've seen of it so far?
Well, first of all, I think that's a good point. We haven't actually seen it. Been waiting for it for many, many months now, as have our allies. So, of course, this is to some degree a little hypothetical, but everything we've seen of it says the government is looking to spend around £13 billion over the next 4 years. And as I said in that letter, in real terms, that means we can't even deliver the current programme. So in real terms, it's a cut. To stand still, we need something like 28 billion. So the reason this is so significant is it's not just about some money for defence. It actually delivers the strategic defence review that was accepted last year or not. Now, if it's or not, then we need to rethink what our strategic priorities are and our place in the firmament, within the world. And that's why it is such an important decision that really ought to be taken by the next Prime Minister rather than by Sir Keir Starmer, who's done us jolly well, I think, by the way, on the world stage. But it's not a decision that he should sensibly now take because he can't deliver his successor on it.
Yeah. I think we can assume, Lord Richards, that had it been possible or politically possible for Keir Starmer, he wanted to be able to sign off on that £28 billion because why commission a review with your colleagues who then come up with a figure and then you fall so short of it? It politically proved to be just impossible.
No, I feel that is exactly the point, which is another reason why he should pass it to his successor, whoever that might be. But all the bets seem to be on Mr. Burnham, who has actually said he would like to try and find more money for defence. So I think I rest my case, really. It is such a grand strategic decision for our country about where we see ourselves over not just the next year or two, but the next 10 to 20 years. Are we a serious influence within NATO? Can we meet our obligations in NATO and indeed in other places such as the Gulf on this assumption of 13 odd billion pounds? The answer, I'm afraid, will be largely we cannot, and we need to come clean about it.
The kind of counter argument to this is, what imminent threat do you think we need to prepare for that currently we are not? The Russia's war with Ukraine has ground on and on. Is there a case to say maybe we're not at a significant threat and therefore this shouldn't be a priority and therefore we've got other demands to spend our money on?
Well, of course, there is that case. But I think when the Prime Minister himself and people like John Healey and others make it very clear, as do all the sort of think tanks, that we need to start spending now in order to be ready in 5 or 10 years for that threat if it should develop. But the more important issue really is that war costs horrendous amounts and risks huge casualties. We want to be ready with our allies to make sure that Russian, for example, adventurism, for want of a better term, is deterred heard well before the point where we actually risk going to war. And that's why we need to invest in it now.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, Lord Richards, the former Chief of the Defence Staff. It was actually in June, so not very long ago, 5th of June, that the Prime Minister said there could be an attack by Russia on NATO as soon as 2030. So that's why he said the words were there was urgency and that defence spending was a priority. And look what happened since then, the resignation of the then Defence Secretary John Healey, which is really what did trigger the very last sort of final standing of the Prime Minister's authority.
Yeah, it was the final blow, I think. And it's going to be a big challenge to Andy Burnham. He doesn't want to come in and start talking about defence. He wants to come in and start talking about domestic policy and cost of living and all that. But he's going to have to, face up to this one. And it's tough.